Hello, I'm Jody Gale, Extension Agent with Utah State University Extension Service. Thank you for joining us today in this video segment. I'd like to talk a little bit about pruning, and we're going to start out in talking specifically about pruning tools. Any pruning job and any job we do is a lot easier if you had good tools to work with. Got a number of things here. You don't have to buy all these kinds of tools, but there's a few things in particular that are really important to make a pruning job a lot easier. Let's start out with loppers. This is a real common pruning tool. This is a relatively kind of a medium-sized lopper. These have a rubber bumper here, and as you make pruning cuts, and especially if you're doing lots of pruning, those little rubber bumpers make your not as much stress on your elbows, and it makes it a lot more comfortable job to prune. The type of lopper you do not want to buy is this type, which is very inexpensive. There's two metal bumps that come together and they just kind of crash together. They make your arms very tired and they're very hard on your elbows. So you don't want to buy this type. The $4 or $5 that were paid for this was still too much money. To get a good pair like this, you'll spend $20 to $25. You don't need to spend a lot of money, but this is a good investment. If you really want to go all out, this is a very expensive pair of professional pruners. Again, have the rubber bumper here. These have wooden handles. There's nothing wrong with wooden handles as long as they're very straight grain with no knots. The wood is somewhat flexible, and to go along with this rubber bumper makes your pruning task quite comfortable. So one good pair of loppers is very needful. A small pair of pruning loppers like this to do the small work are very handy. This particular pair is a scissor type. You can kind of see that one blade kind of compasses this shearing surface. I like these especially because they tend to cut easily like a pair of scissors do. Another common pair is like this, is referred to as anvil. This has a flat surface here and a sharp blade on the top surface. As you squeeze together, as long as you keep the blade very, very sharp, it'll easily cut through many small twigs. The disadvantage of this type of pair of pruners is that if they get a little bit dull, they tend to squash and crush the branch on the end, making it not heal quite as easily. A good little file is always helpful with these types of pruning tools. A little bit of touch up with a file will make them last for many years, keeping them sharp, and so you make good clean cuts. So one pair of loppers, a big pair, a small pair, kind of standard equipment, and then you need a saw for the big jobs. Saws come in all shapes and sizes. This is a standard keyhole saw. It's really referred to as a carpenter saw. The disadvantage in using a carpenter type saw is they're designed to cut when you push. And a lot of times if you're working in carpentry, you're down here on a pair of sawhorses working this way, so the pushing action works very well. When you're pruning trees though, it's very different. Often you're working above your head or shoulder height. This is a pruning saw. This is a folding pruning saw. Very coarse teeth. These are designed to cut when you pull, not cut when you push. So you can be working over your head, using the weight of your body to pull down, and it's a lot easier to do the work by pruning or by pulling down. You'll notice this has a curved blade on it. When you're dealing with limbs, that curved blade is quite an advantage, whereas the blade on a carpenter saw is straight. A few other variations on pruning saws. This is a real nice one for even heavier limbs. Again, the curved shape, very coarse teeth, cut when you pull it, and they work very effectively. Just mention this particular folding pruning saw. I've had this one for 35 years. Prunes very easily, or saws very easily. If you keep them sharp, they'll last a long time. They're fairly inexpensive. Recently bought a new one, and you'll spend $20 to $25 on a good one. The thing that I like about these folding types is you can fold them like this, and when you're working in the orchard, you can tuck those in a back pocket and continue to work with a good pair of loppers. One more type of saw that's very commonly available, I kind of call this my Christmas tree saw. These are nice for cutting small diameter trees and things. They cut when you both push and pull, a standard bow saw type that's commonly available in many lawn and garden centers. Work very well for cutting much larger limbs. So there you have it. Loppers, small shears, saws, a few other tools that are especially helpful for the long jobs are these pruning poles. Pruning poles come in a lot of shapes and sizes. The type that I do not recommend are those that have a lever and a rope, and the ropes tend to come down the handle and are quite inconvenient, and it's often easy to get tangled up in the ropes. This particular type has the standard pruning jaws here, a little lever mechanism on the top. You can see that this has an adjustment where you can adjust the angle of the head with this little tightening button. But this one has a nylon ribbon that goes down on the inside of the handle. So to actuate the pruning head, just simply pull the handle in this manner. Very easy to work using your strength down on the end of the handle and being able to reach out far distances. This one, when you really reach long distance, you can also grab this little button on the end, and the ribbon extends the entire length of the handle. This is probably one of my favorite pruning tools. If I were recommending three things, I'd recommend getting one of these, a pruning pole of this design, a pair of loppers such as these with the rubber bumper, and then a small pair of hand shears that work very well for the small group. Before we close, this is another type of pruning pole that if you have very large trees, they're a little bit more expensive. You'll pay about $90 for a pair for this type of a pruning pole. But as you can see, they have a very long reach and can make it possible to reach quite tall trees. We have a ladder. Ladders are important when you're dealing with bigger trees. This is a standard homeowner type ladder. If you really get into it where you have a lot of pruning to do, one type of ladder that's commonly available in commercial orchard production is a ladder that has the standard legs on this side, but the back of it, instead of having two legs, has just a long metal pole that's easily extended out, and by having 3 points of contact on the ground is a lot more stable than a homeowner type ladder, as you can see here, that has 4 points of contact. A few more tools that are useful when you have medium-sized trees. This implement with the bent forks on the end makes it very handy to reach back underneath trees to pull the limbs out to clean up the prunings. And when your trees are quite tall, you can get this type of an implement with an adjustable handle. This is a standard painter's handle, and if your fruit is very high in the tree, there's this little basket on the end with little teeth and a little piece of foam rubber where you can hook on the edge of the apple, gently tugging it. It'll drop down into the basket, but you can reach quite high distances up into a tree to be able to retrieve the fruit in the fall. So there's an example of some useful tools around the yard. It's not necessary to spend a lot of money, but when you buy tools, it's good to spend a reasonable amount of money for good quality metals, good quality handles, and by taking care of them and not letting them get wet and leaving them out in the yard, by taking care of them, they'll last for a lot of years and provide a lot of good service. Thank you for joining us for this segment of pruning tools with Utah State University Extension Service.